I feel like with everyone being dressed really fancy in the trailer, I had to fit the theme as well. I'm definitely not wearing trackies underneath. Argyle, Argyle, Argyle. If I hear one more time, Argyle, in the trailer, I'm just gonna lose it. What is the hype around our dear agent, Aubrey Argylle? Saying Argyle so many times that it's gonna be one of my most hated words this month. The film is hyped up because there's a group of famous actors that agreed to film this Mission Impossible kind of like film that we don't really know much about. I mean, we were even given a trailer where for a whole minute people are just saying Argyle and we get a cat. Where did Argyle even appear from? We just got announcement one day that we're gonna get a film based on a book, but we didn't even know anything about the book because the book was published this year, 1 month before the film came out. But to be fair, I don't even think we're supposed to know what Argyle is. And we get an anonymous author, Ellie Conway, and the rumors about her being Taylor Swift. I'll be putting a spoiler disclaimer somewhere before I start spilling the tea. I must say, I am quite impressed by this new take on immersing the content consumer. Now, I say content consumer because you might go watch the film or you might read the book. It's a great way to immerse you as a content consumer in the narrative. And for the first time, I actually recommend doing both. We often get disappointed by film adaptations, but I think Matthew Vaughn, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly, so I'll just call him Matthew. I hope you don't mind, Matthew. He and his team have done a great job on this fresh take on creating a new meta universe. And we'll get to talk about that in a second. All I want to say is that you don't need to watch the film or read the book to enjoy the other, but boy, do I recommend it because it genuinely feels like Remy munching on a mushroom and cheese together for the first time. It is sublime. I might be exaggerating a little bit here, so take what I say with a pinch of salt. But genuinely, both the book and the film were okay separately, together. They just complete each other. So let's talk a bit about the film first. If you didn't go into that film keeping in mind that director of this film is the same director as the director of Kingsman, then you might have set very unrealistic expectations for your experience. Now, if you've not watched Kingsman, I'm not really sure why you're still watching this video because you clearly have better things to watch. But if you have watched Kingsman, you know just how many plot twists there are and how things are presented in a comical way when probably in life there isn't much comedy there. And that's the same thing with Argylle. This film is not to be taken seriously. In fact, it's actually a light-hearted version of James Bond. Hence why, on the James Bond note, this book is basically Six of Crows meeting James Bond. That is it, and without the fantasy part. And the whole film is kind of like quantum science. If you think you know what's going on, you probably don't. There was just a plot twist and a plot twist and a plot. If Kingsman is your cup of tea, like it is mine, I think you'd like it too. Since my idea of the video was to actually review the book and the link between it and the film, one final thing I want to mention on the topic of the film is the interview that we got with Matthew Vaughn. Pause and read on your own terms. This interview was taken from an article that will be linked in the description of the video. So a key statement to highlight here is, I love the idea of what would happen if J.K. Rowling met a wizard and was real. And book 4, which is what the movie is based around, was the one that would work for it. So this film is genuinely trying to create some kind of immersive reality or an immersive environment where reality meets fiction. The only confusing thing about this J.K. Rowling statement is, well, is Ellie Conway going to become a fictional character in her own book? So suddenly, the anonymity of the author is no longer just marketing and getting this content being sold. The anonymity of the author actually becomes core element to this new messy universe that the Kingsman people are trying to build. A secretive ingredient is always going to help your content escalate in popularity. And before we make any sense of this, let's talk about the book, because there are some key elements in the book that are also going to help with finalizing that theory of what is Argylle. So I'm going to judge the book on its own for a bit, and I'm gonna say straight up, this is a 3-star read for me. It was just okay. I don't think I can describe it in any other way. In summary, the book is, we see Aubrey Argylle, you know, a teenager, an orphan because his parents are dead, and he gets to go to America and become a secret spy for the very people who are probably to blame for his parents' death. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna say spoiler time now because I genuinely can't discuss it without giving away much, or at least the discussion won't really serve you much if I don't talk you through it. I'm gonna call him Aubrey because if I hear Argylle one more time, I'm just gonna lose my mind. Oh god, no, his name is Aubrey. You're right. So there is so much potential about his character development, and we just get none of it. I'm going to take a step back and say maybe that's because this is just the first book, not knowing that there are like 3 more books to come. So in the first few chapters, we learn that his parents were actually drug dealers. Keep wanting to call him Henry Cavill all the time. Honestly, like sometimes the only thing that motivated me to finish the book was the fact that I could imagine Henry Cavill being a spy for like 400 pages. Yeah, so they took Aubrey around the world, and he got to learn many languages, he got to see a lot of cultures, but unfortunately it gets to a point where they have to hide from the American authorities who are chasing them for their drug dealing crime. They have to ask someone very bad in Thailand called Sam Gore to help them with a favor, to provide a route for them. And you know, Aubrey ends up being an orphan because this very bad person does very bad things to his parents. Eventually, after some years, we get to see Aubrey saving a couple of, what was it? DA. So there are DA agents that Argylle saves from Sam Gore, you know, the very person who made sure Aubrey is an orphan. And because of that, he comes on the radar of the American authorities, and then American authorities think, oh, you know what? Actually, he looks like he would be a very good spy. Sam Gore learns about Argyle's little audacity moment of saving American agents from Sam Gore. So he's like, I don't like that. So I'm going to eliminate you from my territory so that you don't get in my way again. And so the only way Aubrey can stay alive is to escape to America and become a CIA agent. The plot was it felt a bit too shallow for me. The idea is that Aubrey goes to America, becomes an agent for the CIA, and then Frances Coffey, basically the younger Julie Dent, she puts together a team of different agents from different American authorities and agencies. She sent these agents on different missions, on different heist missions, because there is a presidential candidate called Vasily Fedorov in Russia who is after rebuilding the Amber Room, which is very special for the Russians, and it disappears during the Second World War. And so this book gets inspiration from historical events. There are some historical events described that may or may not be accurate, so just remember it's fiction, which I love. I love Second World War fiction, and I love thinking what could have happened, or what if this happened, but we just don't know. So our special agents, including Aubrey, are going on a mission to prevent this Russian from building his empire and disturbing the world order. Someone on the Fable book club that I'm maintaining said that this feels like Captain America wrote it, and I kind of agree because it's very patriotical in the sense of America will save the day kind of thing. I just think the delivery was very shallow. I mean, it's like that this is the whole book basically. It just was given for the sake of, right, here is some action, some mission that we need to do. But it didn't feel like there's much point behind it. The structure of this book was nice in the sense that it's written in third person, so we get an insight to every character's thoughts and feelings. But what I didn't like is that it felt very rushed in a way. Thinking it was one book, at the time when I was reading it, I thought this was going to be one book. So I was like, okay, that's fine. We just have to get to know the characters in a very short space of time. Hence why we are getting this information like. But then, speaking of characters, they were also undeveloped. Generally speaking, throughout the whole thing, in terms of characters, it felt like the author forgot what characters she had and decided to develop them at very random points. She would mention the names in say the first third of the book, and then we go through another third of the book where we don't really read about these characters, and then suddenly it's like listing a lot of names, and I'm like, where did this come from? And then I have to go back and read about it because I forgot that this person exists because it wasn't really developed properly. And honestly, there were too many characters for me. This book had too many characters that were absolutely irrelevant. If your whole plot revolves around mistrust and communication and team and all that secret mission aspect, your characters have to walk so that the plot can run. The idea of the book is lovely, but the execution not so much. And so we get typical characters in this book, like physically built men who just jump in the fight without thinking. Wyatt is my favorite character in the whole thing, and he's also in the film. That's the character played by John Cena, and John Cena played the character perfectly in the van scene when they were doing the phone thing with the chick. He's so lovely, he's so funny, he's just like a big dumb guy like Thor. And this is the other problem I have with this book. I'm trying not to take it seriously because it's meant to be a lighthearted James Bond, like I've already established from my experience so far. The CIA is just not going to have these dumb, impulsive agents, will they? Or do they? And then Argylle, he is supposed to be someone who is very educated and Asian martial arts, but he doesn't seem to understand the philosophy behind it. Oh yes, I've been raised to do hand-to-hand combat and not use a gun because that's a bad thing, and my parents told me it's a bad thing. But then he's just gonna be very impulsive when someone insults his family's past. But if you have practiced martial arts your whole life, you should probably understand not just the physical aspect of it, but the spiritual, the mind, discipline, and all these philosophical elements that come with learning those kind of martial arts. Next character up, Kira, who's also portrayed in the film. She is lovely. The tomboy, hacker girl, woman in STEM. Her story was so poorly served. It just felt like she was added there because the author was going through a to-do list. Like, oh, is my book diverse enough? No, wait, let me add this queer immigrant character. And that's what annoys me the most, because it's like, if you're gonna add this character, can you make it good? So the whole idea behind it is, so Kira, she goes on to talk about the conflicts she has with her parents who are immigrants. And apparently her parents encourage her that because they want her to fit in and not have any trouble, she shouldn't be so ambitious and go for very dangerous or high stake jobs. She should just settle for something nice with good enough pay. And then there's a point where she writes a letter to her parents to explain the whole truth about herself. And I'm like, wait, but which part? The fact that you're queer, the fact that you're an agent when they probably think that you're doing some nice office job. It just doesn't become very clear what is her conflict, what is her struggle. And I think there are some really interesting themes to reflect on there that just don't get reflected on. But again, the book is, in my opinion, intended to be plot focused, which then links me to the point of, but then your whole plot depends on the characters. There is some romance going on in this book. Shocker, I know. Our Aubrey falls for this lady called Erin Quinn, who is also part of the secret agents team. The annoying thing is that suddenly they're just colleagues and suddenly there's chemistry, and I'm like, where did this come from? In this book, there's a lot of telling and not enough showing. We just get told Aubrey is now attracted to Erin, and I'm like, why? Did they have an awkward eye contact? What was it that triggered that? You don't just tell me that it happened. Show me how it happened. This book just assumes readers can't make their own assumptions. And there was also a point, I get so agitated I can't even keep up with my own thoughts. But there was a point in the book where we got told the plan of execution the team is gonna follow like 3 times, I swear. It was like across 3 chapters, we were told the same thing over and over again. Actually, after reading half of it, it got interesting, but then again, it was a bit repetitive. Would I recommend this book? No, but with the films, maybe. I don't want to be too harsh on the book. It is just okay if you have time to kill. Will I read the upcoming books? Probably yes, because I'm too curious. And I just want to see this new fresh idea on building a meta universe where you get books and you get films, and it's like it just feels more realistic. Oh, what if the author was a secret spy agent? A note for the people who are working on upcoming books, please fix the humor. Like, this was literally the only thing that was probably gonna push it to 3.5 stars. You know, not much, but still a bit higher. I think the jokes were a bit too predictable. You can work on them. You can make them less cringy. So if you give Wyatt a bit more dialogue and Kira more authenticity, then we're all good. Back on the note of the film and the books and how they tie together. As we know, the books are the new fast fashion now. Like, the book publishing industry has just gone crazy. Everyone is buying books without actually reading them. Just another marketing strategy, which unfortunately worked. Then at the end, we got a scene from book 1 on young Aubrey Argylle, where we also get to see the reference to Kingsman, because the Kingsman is literally written on as the name of the pub. At what point was the Kingsman reference added to this book? Because when I was reading it, I already knew that the film was going to be directed by the same person who directed Kingsman. And straight away, when I got to the Kingsman reference, I was like, and then it just gets in the vicious cycle of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? That's where I get confused. I understand that they bought the manuscript and then they made the film, and they made the film reflect the book very well, but I think it's actually the other way around. I think the book reflects the film better. The book was literally, it actually feels like a film manuscript. It feels like it's been written for that. It wasn't written to be a book. Hence why that explains all my horribly explained points about character development, being shown things. Because, you know, in a film, you're going to get to see it. There's no description needed. I just have this suspicion that it was actually the book written after the film, or rather it was written to be a film, and they saw a very good marketing strategy to make a book out of it. The book and the film are very well reflected together in terms of the pace of the action is the same, the amount of plot twist. And my fellow readers on Fable, who I read the book with, share the same opinion, that it just feels like a film. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've read it. Let me know if you've watched it in the comments of this video, or you can directly message me. Bye. Stop calling him Henry. What was I saying? I'm a Bon.